met back in the last presidential campaign. He was talking on health care policy, which is very, very near and dear to a lot of us. We were signing up for Obamacare last month.
Yeah.
Affordable Care Act and the Medicare. So we've dealt with that. But there's so many facets to Dr. Sethi, I just don't even know where to start. So he's a local boy, and he's kind of done pretty darn good for himself. So tell the viewers who you are.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. Iva, it's really nice to be here and be back home, actually. And my thoughts go out to the Rankin and the Weidman families that you just spoke of. I know how hard loss is. My name is Manish Sethi, and I grew up just down the road in Hillsborough, Tennessee. And I'm a product of Coffee County, proudly. I am a trauma surgeon at Vanderbilt University, an orthopedic trauma surgeon. And I run a nonprofit called Healthy Tennessee. And what we do is healthcare outreach across the state, really educating folks about preventative medicine. I like to say I'm a product of the American dream in Tennessee. And my parents were immigrants, and they came here with nothing. And I got to do all these great things, and that's really because of the people of Tennessee. But as I started to practice medicine, I realized that we face a lot of obesity today, a lot of just basic problems, high blood pressure, things that we could combat on the front end and take care of, but we're dealing with them on the back end and spending more and more and more money on these issues, when if we could just stop it on the front, instead of paying these outrageous costs that we're paying for healthcare in Tennessee, which is about 30% of our budget, we could spend them on roads, on schools, on building more opportunities for children like myself that grew up here to live the American dream, the same dream that I've gotten to live in Tennessee.
Wow. And how do you take that on? I mean, hey, I'm a Vanderbilt trauma surgeon. I mean, that's kind of a high-pressure job right there, isn't it?
Well, I feel blessed every day to take care of the patients that I take care of. And it's really, it's almost like I feel at home with trauma patients, because they just remind me so much of the folks in the community that I grew up with in Hillsborough. They're just good, hardworking, blue-collar Tennesseans who were on the job. Most of them got injured, falling from ladders or driving trucks or doing whatever they were doing. Now, some, it's a battle with drugs and alcohol, but I really feel called to do this job, and it's just a part of me. It's a blessing to do it, and a privilege.
So you for the Healthy Tennessee, so 2016, what would be some great ideas for our viewers to take on?
Sure. So let me tell you really quickly about Healthy Tennessee and about some of the things that we are doing. So I think right now in government there's this belief that it's really a top-down approach, that it should be government telling people, hey, this is how you need to take care of yourself. And I just don't believe that. I grew up in Hillsborough, like I told you, really a community-based place where your neighbors raised you, and my neighbors had a hand in raising me. And so I really believe in the power of people and the power of community. So over the last 3 years, we've been going across the state doing preventative medicine health fairs, preventative education health fairs, where you come to our fair, there are doctors on the ground, nurses on the ground, nutritionists, fitness coaches, and we get a basic idea of how you're doing in terms of your blood pressure, your blood sugar, urinalysis. And then we have people on the ground right there who coach you and talk to you and educate you about how to become healthier. And so we've done this in East Tennessee and West Tennessee and Middle Tennessee. In fact, our first fair was right here down the road in Manchester.
Wow.
So in 2016, I think for folks who are wanting to get healthy, I think there are a couple of things that you can do, that we all can do. The key is nutrition. I think it's so easy just to consume a lot of calories and gain a lot of weight. So you got to really be smart about what you're eating. Look on the back of your foods. Just realize what you're taking in. One creative way to do that is something called calorie counting, where on average, I think a person should take in about 2,500, 3,000 calories. you could just calculate that all day. Well, if I'm drinking a soda, that's 140 calories. That's 140 calories. I never realized this until I started looking.
Wow.
You know, if you go to, I'll ask you this, a Big Mac. How many calories do you think a Big Mac has?
OMG, I have no earthly idea. That's why I don't eat it.
Yeah, so 1,500 calories.
Oh my God.
So that's one half of your daily intake.
Is that one Big
yeah.
Mac?
So just by doing some of these things, you can really, you know, improve your nutrition and you can lose weight. So that's one. Two is fitness. Just by walking 20, 30 minutes a day with one of your loved ones, you can really get into better shape. You don't have to run marathons. Just go outside and walk.
And we have trails here. I mean, by golly, we have trails.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's right. That's right. That's you know, and that's one thing. You know, just enjoy nature. You just go outdoors.
Outside.
Just get outside, and the rest will figure itself out. You know, and finally, I would say just try to be healthy in this time where it's cold out, the flu, cold. Wash your hands. You know, take vitamin C. Just do some basic things that everybody can do. And I think those are really three positive things that we can all do in the new year to get healthy and stay healthy.
Absolutely. Wow. Okay. So I'm going to switch hats.
Sure.
You know, what do you think about the overhaul possibilities of the Affordable Care Act?
You know, so I got to start by telling you I'm very conservative in my viewpoint on things. But even, you know, as a doctor, I would tell you my problems with the Affordable Care Act and the way that it's all going down is really that it's a top-down approach that is destroying the fundamentals of the patient-doctor relationship. That's my own opinion, speaking as a doctor. You know, I think that we've all been sold a bag of goods, essentially, because as we are opening these state-based exchanges, and they're all open now, yes, people are paying a lower premium, some, but the deductibles are so high. Okay, take, for example, one of our close friends. She pays about $250 a month for health insurance, which she got on a state-based exchange. And you're saying, well, okay, that's a lot of money, but it's something
doable.
You can do. Her deductible is $5,000. So how is that going to work if her income is $20,000 a year? That's 25% of her income right there that she would have to pay. And so I think that what we really need to do is we need to step back and we need to focus on why our healthcare costs going up so high. And I think part of that, again, comes back to preventative medicine. If you treat something like diabetes on the front end, for example, with medications, with diet changes, you can save almost $1 a day. You can spend less than even 10 cents per patient. But when we wait to treat diabetes until it's too late on the back end of the problem,
you've got a major problem.
Yeah, and you're spending $100,000 a day.
Well, Jacqueline and I were talking yesterday because it doesn't make sense because she's had some unfortunate incidences, and so until you don't understand healthcare until you have to use it.
Absolutely.
I mean, honestly, you just you can buy that policy, it looks really great, but then all of a sudden the reality sets in. So anyway, it seems like because everybody in theory has insurance now, right? Isn't that?
In theory.
In theory, that was the goal, is that everybody was going to share the. Okay, so, and then the deductibles, yeah. But wouldn't that mean, didn't hospitals add to their costs because they had to deal with people who couldn't pay?
Absolutely. So one of the big issues.
Wouldn't that change down then?
It's really closing hospitals across the state. Smaller county hospitals, like my dad helped to build Coffee Medical Center, which is in Manchester, and they've been struggling very hard in this new environment. And here's one of the reasons. So when a lot of the hospitals came together to talk about the Affordable Care Act, 3-4 years ago, they agreed to do it on the assumption that and to cut a lot of the costs and what they were charging, because the whole population would have insurance, that it would be very easy to obtain insurance. Now, the president had promised that there would be a wide sort of expansion of Medicaid. So what happened was, the Supreme Court ruled that unconstitutional, as they should. I very much agree with that. And now what you have is, in some states, we are not able, hospitals are not able to pay for the care for some of the uninsured. Because yes, in theory, everybody can obtain insurance, but for some people, as you know and I know, because we grew up here, $250 a month, $300 a month, that's a lot of money for a lot of people. And so some people cannot afford that. Now,
And then the penalties are getting bigger.
And the penalties are getting bigger. Yeah, $2,500 for a family of four. That's a lot of money, as a
And not
penalty.
having insurance.
And not having insurance. And so, I think that the expansion was a bad idea. To expand, TennCare, in my opinion, is not the way forward in Tennessee. Again, I think what we need to do is we need to reduce healthcare costs and get our population healthier, and that's our mission. Healthy Tennessee.
To empower people to be the best that they can be.
That's right, and I come back to community, right? Because so what we do when we do our fairs, we reach out to the local mayor, local businesses, and we really make it a community event. Because I believe that if you don't empower the community to make a difference, nothing will change. Top-down approaches never work across America, and especially here in the South, in Tennessee. I mean, we don't need government to tell us, what we need to and what we don't need to do. I lean more on my next-door neighbors and my family and God to get a sense of what's the right thing to do. And so I think that these efforts need to be on a granular community level.
Do you think that's going to happen?
I think that in the coming election, I think we have an opportunity to elect a president on the Republican side who will repeal Obamacare, and I think that there are many alternatives that we can try. But I think that if we move to a community-based approach, I think that there's a lot that can be done. I also think that one of the big ways forward is we have to reform TennCare. Right now, TennCare is about 30% of our state budget, and that's a real problem because I think that it is a system that needs a great deal of repair. I think, again, we focus on disease and we're not promoting wellness. And so I think we really have to shift and think about what we're doing.
A paradigm shift.
Absolutely.
I mean, just completely full boat.
Absolutely.
Well, and we were talking yesterday. I had a fellow tenacity. Are you familiar with it down the street?
Yeah.
They're doing martial arts.
Sure.
They're doing the healthy thing, and many other clubs and everybody are kind of refocusing their thing about clean living.
Sure.
If it comes from the earth, if it walks, I think is how it's said. So a lot of things. So that would make y'all's job easier, bring the costs down.
That's right.
And then, all right, so, and you're amazing about policy. I mean, I could ask you, didn't you also say something about taking insurance away from the companies? Wasn't that
Absolutely. So, I think that the president missed a large opportunity when he and their administration were reforming health care. Because I think essentially what happened was this Patient Protection Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, really was a health insurance reform bill. That's what it changed. It didn't change how we provide care. It changed how we view health insurance. But here's the deal: companies like Aetna or Humana, or these companies are very large, very, very large companies, and they have a lot of lobbying power in Washington, D.C. So major employers, they go to these companies and they say, okay, well, will you cover our 1,000 employees, or will you cover our 50 employees? Now, these insurers, they have basically the hold on the market. Now, imagine if we took that power away from them. We allowed interstate competition. So we allowed an insurance company in California to compete with an insurance company in Tennessee, a health insurance company, and we reduced regulations. We could create so much competition, improve quality, and reduce cost. For example, if you wanted car insurance, you can go to a company anywhere across the United States.
Anywhere.
If you wanted to, for example, get homeowners insurance, you can do that, across state lines. Why can't we do the same thing for healthcare insurance? And I think that is something that we really need to think about, because I think these large health insurance companies are really putting a chokehold on the market. And I think it's the private sector where you see a lot of this competition, a lot of this innovation. And if we privatize this market more, creating competition, I think that you would see really new and cheaper models that would allow more access.
Gosh, what a novel idea.
So yeah, I mean, I think that's something that
When are you
that
running
really
for president?
Oh, no. I love what I do, and I'm blessed to do what I do.
Well, and speaking of the last segment part of it, you know, you sent me the proof of your book.
Yes.
I have authors on here a lot, so I
yeah.
didn't know when I asked you to come today that you were going to be an author. Well, I mean, I know you did that like health policy stuff with Senator Friss.
Yes. We wrote a health policy textbook about 4 years ago.
I don't know if I'd
Senator
buy
Friss.
that and pick that up and have you sign it. So this one is kind of more on that, you know, cool thing.
Yes.
The American Dream in Tennessee, Stories of Faith, Struggle, and Survival. I think a lot of us kind of know what that's all about. So what made you start that journey?
So, you know, as I told you, I grew up here in this area, and when I was 18, I left for about 10 to 15 years to go to medical school and do my training, and you know, and then I returned home the day I finished. And you know, along that journey, I lost my father. My father passed away, and he was a local doctor here. And I just started thinking about all that he had taught me, and I really initially had a very hard time losing him, and really sort of lost my way. And just as I thought about my life and what I wanted to do, I felt that I found God again, and that I realized how powerful the community around me in Tennessee was to who I became, that I got to essentially live the American dream in Tennessee. I mean, you tell me, where in this world do you have two immigrants who come to a place and the community just takes them as their own, helps to raise their children, and I think that Tennessee is a very, very powerful and unique place. And so as I progressed in my training as a doctor, I started to realize that I had a deep kinship with my trauma patients. And I couldn't understand why. I really felt very close to so many of my patients who had been in harm's way. And what I realized was that there were a group of patients that did very well, that they were, you know, almost near dead, but somehow came back. And then there were a group of patients that had the same thing happen, but they didn't do as well. They healed, but they didn't go on in life as some of these other patients. And I was always very interested in what were the factors that led these patients to do so well. So for 3 years, I went to their homes, I met their parents, their brothers, their sisters, everybody, to really get a sense of who they were. And I chose 8 patients who really had been literally on death's doorstep, but you know, together with them, we had fought back, and they had lived a normal life. And in this journey with them over 3 years, what I found was that it was 3 things. It was faith in God, their family, and the love of their communities. And then it came to me. This is why I feel this kinship with these patients, because it's the same, I have the same story. The critical elements to living the American dream in Tennessee for my family were faith, family, and the power of community. And so it's no different in taking care of my trauma patients. And that's what this book is really about, The American Dream in Tennessee, is that no matter what obstacle you face in life, no matter what hard time you're having, if you have faith in God, if you have a loving family, and you have a community around you that believes in you, I think you can do anything. And that's what I believe is the American dream in Tennessee.
He's making me cry. Can you come to our church and, you know, preach that one? Because isn't that a true story?
Absolutely, absolutely.
So that changed the way they healed.
You know, I have come to see that in this through this book, I have learned a few things. One is that as a doctor, it's really important to know your patient's story, to know who their wife is, to know who their parents are. because it just makes you a better doctor and you understand your patients so much more. But what I've also learned is that, it's not so much about me. It's not so much about being the trauma surgeon. Now, yes, I am involved and we help save lives, but there's so much more. There's so much more. And the minute that, our patients leave the operating table, leave the hospital, there are other factors at play, and it's not so much me. It's really God, faith, family, and community.
Well, and on the last part, I know you're an amazingly busy man. I like that you're a Superman.
Oh.
You got 2 new children.
Yes.
That's so wonderful.
Yes.
Married a lovely lady.
Yes. My wife, Maya, and I, we met when we were 16 years old.
How
and
cool is that?
And we have a 2.5-year-old and we have an 8-week-old. And it's just amazing to think back, when I first met her. I remember the first time I met her, and just to look now and see how far we've come. It's just it's a blessing from God.
Well, and that just did the journey, because when I read your introduction, like I said, I felt like I just so knew your journey, because your parents came from New Delhi.
Yes.
And ended up in the slums.
Yes.
Of New Delhi, bunches of brothers and sisters.
Yes.
Strong family.
Yeah.
But in the slums of New Delhi.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
And they decided on medicine. Both of your parents decided on medicine as a way to
get out of poverty.
And they did it.
States, and they did it.
And they came from where people say are the darkest times.
Yes. And and that is, I believe, that's courage. They grew up in a place. My father grew up, literally had nothing, and they lived almost close to a level of being homeless in a neighborhood in New Delhi, India. And I remember he would take me back there when I was a kid. I remember I went to Hillsborough Elementary School, and we'd have a 2-week vacation. And for part of that time, around Christmas time, he'd take me back to this house where he lived, and there was this huge hole in the ceiling. And in these cold nights, it'd be like 20 degrees there. And my brother and I, we'd fight over the blankets. And I just remember going to bed shivering cold. And my father would tell us all the time, "You are very lucky to be an American, because this is what your dad had to face." And I just will never forget that. But he and my mother, they got past all of that, because they knew that if they came to the United States, that their unborn children would have a shot.
Well, and isn't that what our immigration policy is supposed to be about?
Yes,
right?
ma'am, absolutely.
Is about people bringing something to the table.
Absolutely.
You come in, we do this together.
Absolutely.
What do you think about the immigration policies that are thrown around by the presidential candidates?
I really believe in 2 things. I think, first of all, we really have to secure the borders. I think before any talk of dealing with anything else happens, I think we need to secure the borders. Secondly, I do think legal immigration is important, but the problem is what do we do with so many illegal immigrants in this country? And I think that's a battle and something that we really need to think about very hard. But it does disturb me that my parents got in line and
paid their
dues, and came when they were allowed to come, and how a lot of folks just feel that they're entitled to cross a border illegally. And I think that really maybe puts the American dream at risk, because I think that if you come over without any education, any plan, I don't know how much that's going to help, and so I think that we just need to think more and more about securing our borders, and I think we need to think more about what we're going to do with all of these illegal immigrants across the country.
Because someone will want to kill us.
Yeah, it's a big problem.
But I mean, in the American dream, that's what you're saying in your book. Y'all did what you were supposed to do. You lived American. Your dad did house call visits.
Yeah, slept in the back of his car.
Slept in the back of his car in the community. Your mom birthed half of the babies in Hillsborough.
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
And you're such a fine young man. I'm just proud to know you.
Oh, thank you so much.
Well,
I
thank
really
you for,
appreciate it.
you know, I can't tell you any of my guests have ever made me cry, so.
Oh, well, I'm sorry to make you cry, but I really appreciate you reading the book and being so thoughtful.
Well, and I'm looking forward to, you know, the signed copy
Yes,
of it
ma'am.
and everything.
Yes, ma'am.
And so do you think your family's going to come back home instead of doing the big city stuff? What do you think?
Well, I'm still very involved in Manchester and in Coffee County, and we're doing a lot of Healthy Tennessee stuff. The problem with my job is that as a trauma surgeon, you need a lot of other people. So you need general surgery trauma folks. You need intensive care units. And so hopefully one day I'd love to come home because this is home.
Yeah.
I came back to Tennessee because of the community that made me, and it's amazing. I even operated on my baseball coach, it's things like that, and the people like my coach, who I can't name because of health privacy stuff here, but I never forget when I was 10 years old. I kept striking out. I remember he took me, he looked me in the eye, and he said, "Listen." Everybody used to call me Tony. That was my nickname. He said, "Tony, you got this. You can do this. I believe in you." And all of a sudden, I hit the ball out of the park. And it's moments like that and people like that who made me who I am. And I just very deeply believe that is something that's very unique in our state. Something that really sets us apart is that love of community, that love of our family and faith.
Gosh, praise Jesus. Praise and glory, sir. I always ask people who have been involved in politics or kind of around the circle who they're going to vote for March 1st.
Sure. I still am watching and seeing what's happening. I certainly believe that we need Republican leadership in the coming years, because I just believe that this big government approach that we've had, it's not working, because I think that the Democrats just believe that they know more than people know, and that's something as a doctor that you always have to remember, is that no matter what you're doing, your patient and their family knows best, and it's as simple as that. Everything you do, you've got to have your patient and your family on board. They know best.
Well, but we got some Republican views that are sometimes scary too.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
I think I'm a libertarian, Dr. Sethi.
I'm very, very conservative.
Yeah, I know you are.
And I just believe that our next president really needs to understand that it is the American people that make this country great, and it is not government. And that, if you went to all the houses across here and you said, "Tell me your story," what I've learned is everybody's got a story. Everybody has a perspective. And I think it's so important to respect that perspective and to take that into account. I think, for example, Tennessee is built of communities across the state, small communities, small villages that really, they know what's best. And I think that that's how you govern, is that you understand, that support and decision-making should be on a local level. And I think that's what we need.
Well, it certainly makes a difference in some of those trauma patients. I'm looking
Absolutely.
forward to reading those stories because,
Absolutely.
Being with a family for 3 years, really on a consistent basis, they become family.
Yes, and these 8 families are really are close to me, and they and I think of them often, and I really think of them when, for example, on Tuesday I had a gentleman who was really mangled. And as I was taking him to the operating room and I talked to his family, I thought about one of the patients in here. I've named him Aaron. I changed the names just for patient privacy, but Aaron was a patient that I took care of who was almost basically pronounced dead in the ER. And I happened to be across the street. And we took him to the OR, and one thing led to another, and we were able to save his life. And today he's building tour buses. and he plays guitar. But on Tuesday, I was thinking of him as I rushed this patient to the OR, and how far this patient has to go from sickness to health. But that I believe that, again, through faith in God and the love of his family and the support of his community, that he will get there. And that with those three things, he will turn this around into something positive. Because that is part of trauma. I think that people who, it's really easy to be down on your luck and to say, why did this happen to me? I think the people who look at it and say, it's time for me to put my marriage back together. It's time for me to stop using drugs. It's time for me to stop drinking. I got to change what I'm doing. I think that those are the people who take these experiences and make them positive. And that's my father taught me. He always used to say, a winner is someone who will take any opportunity and make it a positive thing. And so I think of that often.
So it's a mindset.
It's a mindset, absolutely.
And honestly, obviously a heart set.
Yes, absolutely.
Because I believe that God is in control.
Absolutely. And that's, in my job, it's hard sometimes. I bet. You lose patience. I've had to tell families before of young people that they're not going to make it. The operating rooms are on the third floor, and the waiting rooms in the first floor, and I can tell you that that's the longest walk you ever have to take. And at times, it's hard. And I call my pastor and I say, this happened, and he once told me something, and I keep it with me. And he told me, it's not your place to understand. It's God's place, and God has a plan for all of us, and that's what we just you have to keep in mind especially as a trauma surgeon.
You have such heart still. It must be really hard to see death like you do. I mean, how do you keep? I mean, I know it's faith, but wow.
Well, I think over time, I have learned, and it's okay to be human as a doctor. I think today, a lot of people, they pride themselves on being impartial or being hardened, and I think you lose who you are. And I think I think that if something bad happens, or if a complication happens when I take care of a patient and I don't take it personally, that's a problem. I think that's a problem. And it really grades on me. But I think that is how you keep your humanity. And just like I think that in this world today, American medicine is in trouble to some degree, and the patient-doctor relationship is challenged, because I think as doctors, I think we have to remember that this is a calling. This is like being a pastor. It's no different. That generations of my family went into this business to help people, and that's why I chose to do it, is to help people. And I think for example, kind of a relationship can be made to our politicians in general, because I think that we find ourselves where we are as a nation because elected office has become almost this career politician job, and a lot of these politicians forget why they're there, which is to make this country and their neighborhoods a better place for the people who live there. That's why they were sent. And so I just think as a physician, you have to remember that every day, no matter who is on your operating table, that is someone's brother, that's someone's husband, that's someone's father or mother. Right. And really this book is just really reminded me of that.
When's that coming up? Speaking of the book, now that everybody knows you,
Thanks.
Dr. Manny here when I see you in the grocery store.
Yeah. That's right.
Driving by waving.
Yeah.
Where can they get your book?
So it'll be on Amazon.com. Okay. It will be in bookstores across the state. And within the next 2 months, I'm going to be traveling across Tennessee, sort of talking about it, which I really look forward to the opportunity to do that. Hopefully I'll be talking in churches across the state, different bookstores. But it'll be on Amazon.com, on Barnes & Noble, different bookstores.
Am I the first interview for this book?
Yes.
I am the first interview.
Yes.
See, high five. Yeah. I love that. See,